Welcome into Got It Covered. Giovanni Heater alongside Raza Umarani. And we're joined today by a very good friend of the show, Virginia Tech sports media and analytics alum. And he covers Virginia Tech for Tech Sideline, Mr. Carter Hill. Carter, appreciate you joining us. And we bring you in to talk about the coaching hot seat conversation across college football. The Hokies are definitely a part of that with Brent Pry and Virginia Tech. And then, of course, Billy Napier at Florida, Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. Those are the big three that are a topic of discussion today. But so thrilled to have you on. Unfortunately, not for better circumstances, but always good to chat with you on air, my friend.
Gentlemen, what a pleasure. So good to see everybody. This is awesome. You're right, friend of the show. Been watching, been following. Unfortunately, not a good start for Virginia Tech, but definitely a friend of the show, a fan of the show. Dream come true to be on. So great to be with you guys. This is great.
For those that don't know, these are my two roommates that we lived in the same house. It's called the Palace, right? Of course, in Blacksburg. Raza was the roommate for the first semester of senior year. Carter was the roommate for the second semester of senior year. So we talked a lot of football, and we said we just got to get a microphone in front of us and start putting this thing on air. So here we are doing it. We're talking about Gundy. We're talking about Billy Napier. We're talking about Brent Pry. The place to start has to be Gainesville, Florida, talking about Billy Napier. Guys, this is a man that feels in a lot of ways like has lost all control after the 18-16 defeat at the hands of USF in Gainesville at the Swamp on Saturday. He's 20-20 in his time as the head man of Florida, 10-14 in SEC play. There was so much hype heading into the 2025 season for Florida, right? People are picking them to be in the playoffs, compete for the SEC, preseason top 25 team. You got this Heisman contending quarterback in DJ Lagway, and then they lose to USF. And a lot of respect to USF and Alex Golish and what's being built there, but there's never a world where Florida should lose at home to USF, particularly when they only allow 18 points. What do you do? What do you do if you're Florida right now?
I think this is a case of you put your faith in somebody and they do not repay the trust that you've poured into them, right? Because Napier's been on the hot seat at Florida for like 3 years now. He was probably going to get canned at the end of last year, but because they ended the season so well, once Lagway finally got in and started, getting some seasoning on him, they were like, okay, we can bring him back because we saw that it ended well the year before, so it must go well this year. But that's just not the case, clearly. Again, it's just one game. You never know what the rest of the season could look like, but you also realize that Florida is staring down. I mean, they play like 4 top 15 teams in the next 5 games or something crazy like that. And you said it, Napier's 20-20 in his career. He's like 10-14 in the SEC. It's just not going to cut it at a place like Florida. And I almost feel bad because, again, they brought him back because of the way last year ended. If they had lost so many of the games that they won, he would have been elsewhere right now. And now Florida is just screwed because they're not going to win many, if any, of these games in the gauntlet that's coming up. And it just sucks for everybody involved because, I think Napier, this might be a case of a solid coach that might have been in over his skis a little bit, coming over from Louisiana. He's a good coach, obviously, but the pressure of a job like Florida is not for everybody. And some people are meant to handle it. Some people aren't. And I just think Napier is just one of those guys who not built for it.
Yeah, I think Florida is still obviously one of the elite brands in college football. And, when they brought in Billy Napier, he was one of the names of that cycle. We're going to talk about Brent Pry here in a little bit. That was the same cycle. People were talking about Billy Napier coming to Virginia Tech and Florida opened up. Was it LSU that opened up that year too? Or maybe that was the year prior?
But all the dominoes just started falling.
Yeah, there were a couple of elite jobs that had opened up college football, and Billy Napier was the hot name. You look at his tenure at Louisiana, I pulled it up. His last 3 years at Louisiana, they were 11-3, 10-1, and 12-1. He was 40-12 with the Raging Cajuns and 27-5 in the Sun Belt. He gets to Florida, and that first year I think was a little bit tumultuous, and then they dealt with a ton of injuries in the next couple of years. And it felt like, to your point, Riza, they kind of got the ship steered in the right direction last year. Like late in the season, you're feeling like 2 weeks into the year last year, everybody's like, oh, Billy Napier is going to be the first head coach fired. And by the end of the year, you're saying, ooh, you know, maybe he's got things rolling in the right direction. And then you start off the season, to Gio's point, you got all this playoff aspirations and you're in the top 20. People think you can compete at the top of the SEC, and you lose to, albeit a good South Florida team, but Florida should not be losing to South Florida and Gainesville. And to your point, they gave up 18 points. So they were inept, might I say, offensively. They were inept offensively on Saturday. And, you know, when you're in year 4 at Florida and that fan base expects the best of the best, you're going to be in some hot water. I agree, Raza. Like, I think it's more foreshadowing what's to come. The SEC slate is a gauntlet. And if Florida's struggling with teams like that against South Florida physically, I can only imagine how they're going to fare against the best of the best in the SEC.
The fans want Napier out. I don't think there's any question about that. Is there any salvaging this? Like, what do you do if they beat LSU this upcoming weekend? Is there anywhere he can turn to make this right, or is it a dead scenario here?
I mean, so here's their I pulled it up. Here's their next 4 games. You go to Death Valley to play number 3 LSU.
Right.
You go to Hard Rock Stadium to play number 5 Miami, who's now this week playing the team that just knocked you off, by the way.
Yeah, that's true.
Then you come back to Gainesville and play Texas.
Yes.
And then you go to Texas A&M. I mean, they should lose all 4 of those games.
And then 2 games after that, they get Georgia.
Just
welcome
insane.
to the Southeastern Conference
in Jacksonville.
So how can it be salvaged? You gotta probably split the next 2, and I'd say the games you would want to win are one of the rivalry games, right? Like either LSU or Miami, and then probably the Texas game. I think beating Texas would go a long way.
And to your point too, Raza, it's LSU, Miami, Texas, Texas A&M, and then there's still Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State on the schedule.
Yeah. Wow.
Like maybe you get 7 wins, maybe. And
ideal. I mean, that's a glass half full. That's a glass full, not even half full. That's just a glass full aspiration at this point. You just don't know what it's going to look like.
Wow.
No bueno.
Yeah, not good times for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators in Gainesville. Let's talk about Mike Gundy, right? He's another big piece of this conversation right now. And it all of a sudden just blew up out of nowhere, it feels like, in Stillwater, right? Like, let me remind everybody, this is a team that in 2021 was essentially an inch away from the college football playoff. They finished 12-2. They cough up the Big 12 title game to Baylor. In 2022, a little bit of a setback. They go 7-6. But in 2023, they were 10-4, right? 2024, 3-9. Then you're off to a 1-1 start. And it's not just the fact that it was a 1-1 start. It was a 69-3 straight up murdering at the hands of Oregon in Eugene on Saturday. Oregon goes out there. You look at the drive chart, and throughout the entire game, it's punt, 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 punt. Interception, punt, punt, punt for Oklahoma State. And obviously you had the field goal sprinkled in there. And then on the other side, Oregon, it's just touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown, 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 and a couple of mercy punts at the end of the game. They scored 69 in 3 quarters. Mike Gundy's already on the hot seat going into this season. It's not the fact that you lost to Oregon. It's the fact that you just shouldn't lose a power conference game like that if you're a power conference team. This is a shell of a power conference roster and really just organization and program right now. Thoughts on Mike Gundy? It's tough because he's been around since 2005 and he feels like vintage college football in so many ways. And there are more strings attached there than there are with probably any other hot seat conversation in America right now. But is it time to move on in Stillwater?
I think so. This is a more difficult conversation than a Napier or a Pry, because Mike Gundy has been at Oklahoma State for longer than what we've been alive, the 3 of us. So, I mean, it's been a hell of a long time. it's hard to replace a legend. I think Tech kind of went through something similar with Frank Beamer, but it never got this bad.
Sure.
They had a bad loss in 2014 or 15 to Miami at home on a Thursday night, I want to say, that you could see the writing was on the wall. And the next year is when Frank announced his retirement. I want to say last year can be pointed at as the year that the writing was on the wall for Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, because going into the year, we looked at them as a Big 12 favorite, one of the favorites at least. Remember, we talked about Ollie Gordon being a Heisman sleeper or contender, and they were awful. They were 0-9 in the Big 12 last year. And I think you look at this year and you were saying, can they turn it around? How can they turn it around? And this is not a promising start. And again, like you said, it's not a conference game, but man, it's just, you can't lose any game that way, that badly. I know that I saw Oklahoma State fans are starting like a GoFundMe to buy out his contract, because I think it's an expensive buyout.
Yeah, it is.
Considering he just signed a new contract extension last summer, right after they had that promising 23 season going into 24, he got a new deal. So like, this isn't an easy buyout for a school like Oklahoma State to just cough up that money. Kind of like, to a lesser extent, but like what we were talking about with Alabama and Kalen DeBoer last week, like this isn't just the easy hand him paycheck and let him be on his way, for a buyout perspective and from a tenure perspective, because the guy's been there forever, so not an easy situation. But if last year was the writing on the wall season, you can point to Saturday's game as the proverbial nail in the coffin.
Wasn't the Mike Gundy contract situation the one where like they wanted to restructure his contract and they were like, we're not doing that? Wasn't that what that was last year?
Yeah, it was very complicated.
Yeah, so he's getting paid $7.5 million a year. To your point, Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State has been a very, very good program in college football. Not great, but very good program in college football for a long time. They go 3-9 last season. It's the first time they have a losing regular season. Let's see here, since 2005, which was his first season at Oklahoma State. I mean, they had been pretty good for a long, long time. And now you look at the Big 12 too. And what's unfortunate for Oklahoma State is the Big 12 is as wide open as ever. You could argue that Oklahoma State is maybe the premier football brand in the Big 12, because there's not a premier brand anymore. It's them or West Virginia, probably. With Texas and Oklahoma off to the SEC, Oklahoma State should be winning consistently in the Big 12. And I don't think it's really a reflection on Mike Gundy. I just think maybe it's time. Like, the game has passed him a little bit. And it gets there with a lot of different coaches. It got there with, you mentioned Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech. It's gotten there with plenty of other. Got there with Jim Boeheim, Syracuse basketball too. Any legendary head coach, football, basketball, whatever it may be, they have their run for their money, but it gets to the point where it's time to move on. And he's only 58 years old. He may not be in his upper 60s or low 70s like those coaches were, but you do start to wonder, like,
that Jim Boeheim?
Yeah, right there. Yeah. So yeah, you just start to wonder, like, when is this going to be something that is pulled the plug? And I think that's coming sooner rather than later. Do I really think with Mike Gundy it's going to be an in-season thing? I don't know. I mean, he's one of those like legendary coaches there. Maybe it's one of those where like he quote unquote retires at the end of the year and they move on. But yeah, clearly something's not working, because 3-9, and they were bad last year too. 3-9, and then to lose 69-3. And to your point, I don't care that it's Oregon or Oklahoma State should never be losing 69-3. I mean, that's just bad.
They shouldn't lose to the Carolina Panthers 69-3.
No. Very bad.
Boys, this one hits home a little more than any of the others. Brent Pry at Virginia Tech. Obviously, you're looking at three guys that not only graduated from Virginia Tech, but literally spent our life's work the last 4 years growing, learning in this industry, covering Virginia Tech athletics and primarily Virginia Tech football. We've been around it. We've literally been at pretty much every game of the Brent Pry era. Carter, you and I were at his opening day press conference, right? So we've been there from the beginning with boots on the ground, traveling across the country, watching this team play. 3-8 in year 1, 1-6 in conference, 7-6 in year 2, 5-3 in conference. You had the nice turnaround where they rip off a handful of wins at the end, get into the Military Bowl, take care of business against a depleted Tulane roster that was going through a coaching change of its own. 2024, last year, you go 6-7, 6-6 in the regular season, lose the bowl game, get pretty beat up by Minnesota down in Charlotte in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, 4-4 in conference play. And then in 2025, you're off to an 0-2 start. Lost to South Carolina, looked competitive at times against a solid Gamecocks team that was ranked in the top 25 down in Atlanta. Then week 2, backs against the wall, show me what you got kind of a game, fighting for your job in front of a jam-packed Lane Stadium where there's not a single empty seat for the home opener. Vanderbilt comes to town. You had just lost to them in the season opener the year prior down in Nashville. And Virginia Tech lays a catastrophic nail-in-the-coffin egg. Led at halftime 20-10. We're outscored in the second half 34-0. We're outgained in the second half by 300 yards. Amassed only 21 total yards of offense in the second half. Complete and utter collapse by the Hokies in half number 2. Vanderbilt takes care of business. Pavia rolls. Clark Lee's running a very tight ship in Nashville, and they look well on their way. They'll play South Carolina this upcoming weekend, a fascinating matchup, but it kind of felt like, and I don't say this lightly. This is a word that honestly I almost chose not to use on the air, but in a lot of ways it felt like, a funeral for the program on Saturday, the way that second half unfolded in Blacksburg. Brent Pry is 16-23 overall at Tech, 10-13 in conference play. Carter, you were there. Raza and I watched from afar, but we're very tapped in. What are the vibes around this program right now?
As low as I can remember it. I mean, I just think everybody knows the inevitable, what's coming, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when you're 2 games into we are 2 games into the new season, there's been 1 home football game played, and everybody's like, that's it. We're done. So, yeah. So let me preface it with this. I like Brent Pry. I don't know him personally, but I like Brent Pry.
Yeah,
he is a great ambassador for Virginia Tech, and he embodies Virginia Tech. And from a personality standpoint, he is a perfect fit. But it is a results-oriented business. And just so I don't come off as opinionated, I'll read off some stats, and you can make your determination, how those results are going to mold at Virginia Tech. So Brent Pry in his 4th season, 2 games into his 4th season at Virginia Tech, has lost to Old Dominion, Marshall, Purdue, and twice to both Rutgers and Vanderbilt. He is 0-8 against non-conference Power 4 opponents. Most of those games are at home, too. Lost to multiple schools, multiple times within the ACC. Very winnable ACC, very gettable ACC. They don't spend nearly what Virginia Tech does in football. And to me, the most jarring stat that nobody's talking about, Virginia Tech is 10-20 against Power 4 opponents under Brent Pry. They have won 1/3 of their games against Power 4 opponents under Brent Pry. And kudos to Shelton Moss. I don't know if you saw his rant on Twitter the other day. He came prepared with all these numbers. And I don't want to read off all of them because that's his thing, but that kind of gives you a gist of the current situation. One of his points, though, that he made that is so true is Virginia Tech has not had a tough schedule under Brent Pry. They've not. I mean, their non-conference opponents have been Purdue, Rutgers, Vanderbilt. And I will say, other than Purdue, Rutgers and Vanderbilt are very, very much improved. Very much improved. Yeah. But Virginia Tech should still not be losing at home in football to Rutgers and Vanderbilt. So it is, let's call it how it is. Brent Pry's tenure at Virginia Tech, and this is a very aggressive thing to say, but when you look at the results, Brent Pry's tenure at Virginia Tech has been borderline a disaster. Yeah. I mean, it's not been good. It has been very, very bad. Like bottom level Power 4 bad. In a bad ACC too. And Virginia Tech is in the bottom 3rd at best in the ACC right now. And that second half was as disappointing as I can remember watching. Like, to see how there were some signs in the first half. Vanderbilt was doing some good things offensively, and Tech was kind of struggling to stop them. The only time they did stop them was the 2 turnovers. And keep in mind, too, Vanderbilt had a ton of penalties. A ton of penalties. They were consistently 1st and 20, 2nd and 18, 3rd and 23, whatever it may be. But they found a way to convert. And you feel like you made some progress after week 1 because you play South Carolina, and defensively, you looked really, really sharp. No doubt about it. Defensively, Virginia Tech looked very, very sharp against South Carolina, and an offense that has gotten a lot of hype coming into the season. Now, offensively, you had some concerns, but you feel like coming out of that South Carolina game, okay, maybe this is a workable product. And you probably feel that way after the first half against Vanderbilt, too. But to get outscored 34-0 at home, in which you were in the negatives from a yardage standpoint until garbage time, is very, very alarming. Very alarming. Go ahead, Raza. Take the keys. Take the keys.
These aren't perfect comparisons, but they came to my head like, remember at the end of Ratatouille where they make the ratatouille for the critic and he takes a bite of it and it takes him back to his childhood. I had one of those moments watching the ACC Network. I think did a great job of showing the shots of Lane Stadium, the diaspora of everybody just leaving Lane Stadium. I thought back to 2 moments of my time as a Washington football fan. One was 2018. Okay, the last game of the 2018 season. It was the year that Alex Smith broke his leg, and then Colt McCoy broke his leg. They were starting Mark Sanchez and Josh Johnson. They finished the year playing at home against the Philadelphia Eagles, and there was not a burgundy jersey in the crowd. It was all Philadelphia Eagle fans, and the Redskins did not score in that game. They lost like 24-0. And I thought watching that game, where do we go from here? Like, how can this possibly get better? And it didn't for a while. And then I thought of 2022. Gio probably remembers this well because his division pals, the Miami Dolphins, had this crazy offense. Actually, 2023, I should say, had this crazy offense, and they were going to win the division and all this stuff. Late in the season, I want to say second to last or third to last game, they come to DC, and it's all aqua in the stands. I've never met a Miami Dolphin fan in my life. It's all aqua in the stands. And I want to say Miami won that game 45-15. It was like 31-0 at halftime. And I'm like, dude, where do we go from here? It was the first year under new ownership. And of course, the next year they drastically turned it around. But it's just the same feeling I felt watching Lane Stadium file out the way that it did. I mean, Carter, I heard you talk about it on one of your Tech Sideline videos. You left when it was like 30-20 in the second half, like after they scored.
Yeah, I left when it was 37-20, but I noted that a lot of people left when it was 30-20. Like they're just done. They're out.
And Gio and I talked about this in our week 2 recap. It's not like that the second half was trending in that direction, but Vandy scored on one of the final plays of the third quarter to take a lead into the fourth. It's not like they came out of the gates and totally smacked Tech around in the third quarter. They took that lead with very little time left in the third, and Tech just gave up. And there was a whole sense of giving up in the stadium, from the people wearing maroon and orange in the stands to the people wearing maroon and orange on the sidelines and between the white lines. I think the general sentiment in Blacksburg, from what I understand from afar, is throwing your hands in the air and saying, it's over. We tried, but there's nothing left to accomplish. This is, you're kicking the can down the road, delaying the inevitable for as long as this continues. And for what it's worth, after we all knew what the Vanderbilt game represented, right? I mean, Gio and I, when we previewed Virginia Tech in our ACC preview, I said if they started 0-2, that Main Street would burn to the ground, and that the acceleration the process of all of these moves would be accelerated greatly. And I'm interested to get your insight, Carter, but I feel like that's where we're at.
If I may jump in here real quick. In the past, we've seen Virginia Tech fans be very angry because of the expectation of what had been built by Frank Beamer and how this had been one of those programs, not in the S tier, not in the A tier, but right here, right? Always in the top 25, always a 8 to 10 win football team, always going to bowl games. You had the long bowl streak, what have you, always competing for the ACC crown in that conversation, right? When Justin Fuente got fired, and for those that don't know, he was the head coach after Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech, which you would take Justin Fuente results on the field right now in a heartbeat compared to what you're getting at the moment, right? Essentially, Fuente got fired for Brent Pry's best, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. There was anger They lose to Syracuse in 2021. I remember calling that game freshman year, and the crowd literally chanting Fire Fuente on their way out of Lane Stadium. And that's what you're seeing right now in Florida with Billy Napier as he's walking out. Fire Billy, you're a bum, Billy. Like, that's literally like, there's videos of that. That's clips. And there's anger and animosity there. But now you're seeing something completely different at Virginia Tech. You're seeing apathy has been the word that people have been using. It's almost as if this fan base has given up hope and have stopped caring. There was a time where they were so passionate and they were so upset about it that it angered them to their core and they wanted their voices heard. And now it's just defeated them in a whole different way. And my fear, because the one thing Virginia Tech still has to cling on to, and like my biggest selling point on Virginia Tech and Virginia Tech fans and Hokie Nation is that, you know, Brent Pry's first year, they're a 3-9 team. It's like week 11. It's pouring rain. Virginia Tech's won 2 games all year. Georgia Tech's coming into town, who's a team that has won maybe 4 or 5 games all year. And there's not an empty seat in the stadium for a noon kick in pouring rain between Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech. And that's a moment I've always looked at with this fan base and said, no matter what, they always show up. And Enter Sandman for so long has been this amazing entrance, and it's always the best part of the night because it's downhill from there. But there comes a point in time where my biggest fear with the anger going away and it turning into something worse and the silence is that they're going to stop showing up. And when they stop showing up, you've reached a whole different level of a problem, because that's what happened at Syracuse. They used to pack the dome. They used to pack the dome no matter what. And then just year after year of not being up to the standard that was once set in the early 2000s and then all the way carrying into the early 2010s, they stopped coming. And now Syracuse is a 10-win football team and they still can't sell the place out because you've had this disconnect for 12 years where people didn't care. So it's hard to get them to come again. And if Virginia Tech gets to that point, that'll be a really, really sad reality.
And that is going to be put to the test over the next 2 weeks with Old Dominion and Wofford. That is going to be very much put to the test. Because here's what I'll say. What is very, very disappointing about the Vanderbilt game too is the atmosphere, to be honest, guys, was maybe as good as I can remember over the last 5 years. It was awesome. Awesome. The students stayed as strongly as I've seen through the third quarter in years. Years.
Yeah.
It was still packed at the end of the third quarter. And then you do that. So, yeah, I think apathy is definitely going to set in. Now, whether or not it affects attendance greatly over the next 2 weeks, we'll see. But here's what I'll say. What's your incentive to coming back to Blacksburg if you're not within a 50-mile radius to come back to these games? It's great to see everybody, but it's expensive to do it. To park, to get tickets, concessions. Hotel rooms in Blacksburg game day weekends are crazy expensive. Restaurants, bars, shops, all that suffers when people don't come back. And I'm not saying people aren't going to come back, period. But like, again, what's your, like, give me an incentive other than maybe seeing your college buddies, which is great. But what is your incentive to come back to Blacksburg if you're east of Roanoke? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is your incentive?
I'll put it this way. I pondered the thought of coming down for a game. It just happens to work out that I'm working now covering Syracuse, and Syracuse's 2 bye weeks. Tech is on the road, unfortunately. I pondered the thought of coming down, especially like I was so excited. They played solid against South Carolina on the defensive side. And I was so excited going to that Vanderbilt game. And I was like, man, you have FOMO not being there it looked like an unbelievable atmosphere. And
yeah,
you know, it's 10 hours away. I was like, I'm going to pick a weekend if I can make it work and come to a game. I'm not going to do that now. You know, what it costs to get down there to watch that. And I'm a fresh alum. How about the alum that graduated 10 years ago? The incentive is very different because then again, they're disconnected, you know? It's tough, man. It's tough.
And there's so much more to this equation when you look at the athletic department as a whole, because this is not going to be an easy few weeks and months for the Virginia Tech athletic department, but we also kind of know what's going to happen down the stretch here as these weeks and months play out. So like, I mean, it's anybody's guess as to what happens here, but Carter's so sick of it, he just decided to leave entirely.
I don't know where Carter went. That's crazy. There he is.
My Mac. I had to grab my Mac charger. There we go. Continue your point, Raza. I had to grab my charger.
Yeah, it's just there's so much more to this equation than firing Brent Pry.
Yeah.
And Carter, I know you've outlined it pretty well. It's not going to be easy. Just point blank period. It's not going to be. There's so many more jobs on the line than just head football coach at Virginia Tech. There is a lot that's going to go into these next few weeks. So I just feel bad, man. I feel bad for the fans. I feel bad for the players.
I feel bad in the sense of too, like this whole team's new.
Yes.
Virginia Tech fans are not going to get to love these guys, like that's what's great about playing for Virginia Tech is you're so synonymous with the fan base.
Mm-hmm. And now you're going to have a mass exodus once these inevitable firings take place, and Virginia Tech will have 55 new football players lining up for them next year. So I feel bad because I think Tech fans were dealt a bit of Kool-Aid with the Brent Pry hire, and like the way 23 ended, we were also fired up going into 24, and 24 was such a letdown, and this was always the prove it year. And in a really a prove it game, the ultimate prove it game for Virginia Tech against Vanderbilt, they laid the biggest egg I've seen them lay in a very long time. Definitely under Brent Pry.
You could argue ever. Biggest egg they've ever made. You could argue ever.
Considering the circumstances, absolutely. And I feel bad. Obviously the fan base deserves better, and we'll see what the next few months look like and how they decide to approach this next cycle. But, we were kind of talking about it off air, Gio. It's almost like the process kind of needs to be picked up a little bit here because the
writing's on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah. Carter, if they lose to Old Dominion at home in Lane Stadium this weekend, nobody's returning Sunday morning, right?
I would say that's accurate. Yeah.
And I want to say that too, these are people's jobs we're talking about.
Yeah.
And
it sucks to talk about.
It does. And I almost, we consider not doing a video like this, but when you work in an athletic department and stuff and you get to know these people, like there are people that we know that this will greatly affect. So it's, we're not, fans toss these things around like fire Billy, like you toss it around so loosely, but these are serious matters. But again, there's a lot at stake, right? And it's all kind of comes with the territory.
And when a head football coach and an athletic director are let go, financially they'll be fine. But there are a lot of people, as you guys know, underneath those two umbrellas that probably will not return, where money is a little bit different. So it's definitely something to consider. It's a very unfortunate situation, but I do think, to your point, everybody knows where it's headed. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if they lose this weekend, if that's it, but I would say there's a good possibility. I mean, what are you waiting for at that point? Right. But then it brings in and this is already an issue. Virginia Tech is in a predicament in the sense of, okay, you're going to have to move on from your head football coach, which means you're probably going to have to move on from your director of athletics. If you do that at the same time, first off, you better get on that athletic director search.
Yeah.
And let's say down the line, let's say there's a change at the AD spot, and then head football coach wise, it's in a couple of weeks. Okay, if you don't have an athletic director hired, who is hiring your head football coach? Board of Visitors, the president? The answer to that is that's probably who it would be. Mm-hmm. But then you're hiring an AD that doesn't have a working relationship with that head football coach, and that can cause issues down the line. You're also going to have to deal with the buyout of an AD a head football coach, his entire staff, when you're already having to deal with buyouts from his staff, from guys that he had to let go last year. They're still paying Chris Marv. They're still paying Ron Crook, offensive line coach. Justin Fuente's buyout's done. They don't have to worry about that. But there's so many moving parts to this. And then you have to bring in a whole new staff. So the biggest question, okay, if they did this at the same time, that's probably the best case scenario, because then you can go ahead weeks in advance, have your board of visitors prepare who's going to be the next AD, and then he can hire the football coach. Because I don't think you want to get in a situation where the BOV is hiring your football coach. That's not what you want to do. So they're in a little bit of a predicament.
It feels to me like it's doomed from the get-go, because it's going to be rushed. No matter what you do at this point, it's going to be rushed, because there's no world in which Whit Babcock hires another football coach, right? So he's done, but the whole process has to be sped up. Like, in a perfect world, you changed your AD after last football season or in the spring, and then you actually have this runway to work with here. But that's not what happened. And I understand that it didn't happen before. Like, maybe it wasn't at the height, but it's just unfortunate that you start 0-2 like that in these backs against the wall, prove it games, that now you are forced to rush the process in some way or another and cut some kind of corner. And doesn't that feel like you're inevitably doomed? Like, you could be setting up an athletic department for failure for years and years and years. This could stem well beyond this short-term situation.
Yeah.
And it's also more than just football. You're right. It can affect so many other things. So it's brutal for so many people involved. And like, I mean, you said it, Gio, it's unfortunate. It's not fun to talk about, man. It's
no.
There's so much at stake. And to Carter's point, so many other moving parts in and outside of football. It's a university-wide issue that has ripple effects everywhere. It's just a shame that it's happening to a place like Virginia Tech, which is such a proud football program, has such proud alums and fans, and the people of Blacksburg are very prideful. So you can only hope and pray that it gets turned around and they make the right decisions. But right now, it's just it feels, again, like delaying the inevitable, kicking the can down the road. And I'm really interested to see what the sentiment is and what the feeling is, the vibes are at Lane Stadium at 7:00 on Saturday evening.
Well, and here's one more thing too about your athletic director position. Who has to? It's no secret that Virginia Tech's in a great spot financially within the athletic department. At least how they've layered things. Your director of athletics, who theoretically could be on his way out, less than a month ago just asked to go to $200 million. So they're gonna first off, you're not gonna give an outgoing athletic director the money he wants. And I think eventually they will get to that point, but it just creates this whole awkward situation where your athletic director, who probably is not going to be around in a couple of months, just asked the board of visitors to go up to $200 million from an athletic budget standpoint. And Virginia Tech needs to get to at least close to $200 million to feel like they're in a good spot in the ACC.
Yeah, because there's
that awkward side of things too.
Right, because they invest so heavily into football, but they're not even at the top of their own commonwealth in spending when it comes to other departments within all of athletics. So it's just nuts. I mean, like, I was on the side of the athletic department when it came to that presentation, when it came to the requests, because Tech needs to be more financially invested to be able to compete at the highest level in the ACC. But that's not the case in football. It's not the case in football. They're a better team, maybe not a better team, but they have higher funding and there's more resources invested in a place like Tech than there is at a place like Vanderbilt or Rutgers or Marshall or Purdue or Old Dominion. And Tech has lost to all of them. Some of them twice.
They didn't get one of them. That's what's crazy. They didn't get one of them.
That's what it boils down to for me, man. That is a shocking figure. It almost makes you wonder in retrospect, how has this lasted this long?
Yeah, these numbers are so much more staggering than Gundy's or Napier's.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you look at those scenarios, and I get Florida is different, right? The expectations are totally different. But you look at those, and it's like, if I had a 10-win season 2 years ago, it's going to buy some time compared to what we've seen out of Brent Pry's regime. Like, we celebrated a 7-6 year, guys. Celebrated it.
Right, because they had won. They had won 4
They did
more
what
games
Florida
in the year
did last
prior.
year.
Exactly. And I told people, I thought Tech was a 9-3 football team last year. They certainly seemed like a 9-3 football team going into the year. And I was like, if
they had 6 NFL players.
Exactly. You would go from 3 wins to 7 wins to 9 wins. That is good trajectory for a program that was really in a rough spot when Brent Pry got there. But no, you go 3, 7, 6, and then God knows what this year looks like. And the bad losses is one thing, but I'll pose this question to you guys. It's one of my last points here. Right now, what is the marquee win for Brent Pry at Virginia Tech? Is there one?
You didn't have one. If you had to pick one, it would be Virginia and Charlottesville just because of the manner they did it, in my opinion. But he doesn't have one. They beat a ranked team in 2022, so what? They beat a ranked Tulane in the bowl game. So what? They had 20-something opt-outs. Interim head coach.
Everybody left. Their head coach left. It was pouring rain.
Who'd they beat in 2022?
Liberty.
Oh, give me a break.
Yeah, let that salivate for a minute.
Give me a break. I didn't remember Liberty being ranked in that game.
I mean, you lost last year ACC games. I mean, 9-win Syracuse, 9-win Duke. That's fine. Both of those on the road. But, man, you send a message in a bottle back 10 years that Tech is losing at Syracuse and at Duke. You're like, no, man, that's not going to fly. Losing the Old Dominion in 22 in that first game, it's just not going to fly. It's just crazy to think about. We've just accepted these losses as,
okay,
that's just going to happen.
To answer, to further your point on your question, what's his marquee win? The ones running through my head, think about the opponents I'm listing right now. These are the games that ran through my head. Blowing out Wake Forest in Lane in a night game. Blowing out Virginia and Charlottesville. Blowing out Syracuse in Lane in a night game. Blowing out Pittsburgh in Lane in a night game. Blowing out Boston College in Lane in a night game.
By the way, a Pitt team that was...
Listen to those schools I just said.
Dude, and by the way,
that every world should blow them out. This isn't 2009 where,
no,
you know what I mean? Virginia Tech and Boston College are going at it for the ACC title.
Yeah.
Pitt was so bad in that game. That's true. Pitt was so bad in that game, so poorly quarterbacked, that then next week they turned their quarterback into a tight end.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Now, I will say, the answer to this question should have been Miami last year. But as much as Tech got jobbed on the Hail Mary, I wrote a column about this with Carter sitting at my shoulder last year in Florida. I wrote a column about that should never have even gotten to that.
Should never have gotten to that point.
Should never have gotten to that point. Tech should have won by double digits in regulation, period. So as much as we can say, oh, it would have been that except for the Hail Mary. No, it would have been that except for coaching. And that's back on Brent Pry's shoulders.
See, that's what's frustrating too. Like everybody says, like coming into last year, like, oh, like that was silly in hindsight to look back and say they could have gone 9-3. No, like despite all the coordinator issues and the clock management issues that they had, they still should have gone 9-3, which is crazy to say. When you look at their coordinators, like, let's be real. I don't think Tyler Bowen was a bad offensive coordinator. I do think they upgraded there. So I don't think he was a bad offensive coordinator. I don't think he was elite by any means. They were in a tough spot at the DC spot. They were in a tough spot there. And what's interesting to me too, is when you look back at Virginia Tech the last couple of years, the height of the Brent Pry era to me was when Bashaw Tootin ran up the hill in Charlottesville. That was the height of the Brent Pry era.
Yeah.
And it should have been what kickstarted what was to come, because you were down 17-3 at Vanderbilt before you knew it. So there wasn't even time to be like, oh yeah, this is going to be a great year. Like, look at the Hokies going down the field and scoring like we saw on Saturday. Mm-hmm. There wasn't even that. Like, have the situation in Miami where you call timeout with 27 seconds left and you kick the field goal, and then you nearly give up a kickoff return for a touchdown, and then they kick the field goal. And then at Syracuse, you say, no, John Love, you can stay off the field. You can go be with the band instead of trying the 55-yard field goal. That's okay. That's okay. We'll just take it to half. And that probably cost them the game.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this question. And I'm curious. I think you guys are going to say the same thing. But what do you think Brent Pry's downfall ultimately will be at Virginia Tech?
Oh, this is easy for me. This is easy for me.
Mhm.
His downfall is the fact that out of the gate, they let a first-year head coach hire 2 first-time coordinators. It was a catastrophic setup for failure from the get-go, and I don't know why we didn't look at it that way when it happened. You had people that have never called plays before as both your offensive and defensive coordinator, on top of you being a first-year head coach. Whoever let him do that, it was doomed from the beginning. Like, remember Justin Fuente? Like, we have to give Witt credit for when he came in, how brilliant it truly was to, okay, Fuente, and then on top of it, we're going to convince Bud to stick around. And that's going to ease this transition and smooth over this transition because Bud's going to stick around for 2 years and everything's going to be seamless. And it didn't fully work out, but I'll remind everybody, like I mentioned, Brent Pry's best was Fuente's worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Justin Fuente still had 2 really good years at Virginia Tech. Like, I don't view
The first
Fuente
2 years with Bud, they were competing at the top of the ACC.
They went to the title game.
They were 2 plays away from winning the ACC title, which is crazy to think about. Crazy.
I agree with you, Gio. I agree with Gio. Like, you let a first-time head coach hire first-time coordinators. Nobody knows how to manage the game properly. Nobody knows how to manage the clock properly. There's nobody advising you in the building on what to do, what not to do. Just a total lack of experience, real game experience. You know, when you're a first-time head coach at a program as well, I mean, Tech is a top 25 program on a national scale, and you have a first-time head coach at a program like that, it's like, oh man, you can't afford to be making the mistakes that you're the mistakes that you're making. And we saw it out the gate in that first game against Old Dominion in 2022 when Tech lost to Norfolk. That was literally the trailer for the 3-season movie that has ensued since then. So I'm totally in conjunction with you, Gio. And it's crazy because it's like the writing was on the wall from game 1. And now here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, without a doubt. The 2 first-time coordinators.
Game 1. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say too. 2 first-time coordinators, first-time head coach is blasphemous when you think about it. He didn't even let Chris Marv call the plays in year 1. That's how much he believed in his first-time defensive coordinator.
Crazy.
Like, when you look at this in hindsight, so many missed opportunities.
It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that any of this ever happened.
It's also hard. It makes it harder to believe they're at the bottom of the Power 4 because look, even within your league, Duke was in a worse spot than Virginia Tech, and they hit on 2 head hires, and they've taken off. They don't get people in the stands, but they win football games. To give your boys up in Syracuse some love, Syracuse doesn't spend what Virginia Tech does in football, and they win 10 games in year 1. Granted, they had a really good quarterback. But like it makes it that much more painful that Virginia Tech is in the position it's in, because it should not be like, at worst, Virginia Tech should still be winning 7-8 games at worst.
I completely agree with you.
So bad. I feel for everybody because it's such a tough situation, but it's kind of where we're at. So
I agree. Well, this was this really brought everybody down. Thanks for joining us, Clark.
Dude, love it. Anytime. I wish we were talking about it too. And oh, by the way, real fast, another quick point. We really think South Carolina's that good?
No. Vanderbilt's going to go beat them in Columbia this weekend.
I don't really see it with South Carolina. So maybe that game was more about South Carolina than Virginia Tech. I don't know.
Maybe Shane Beamer is the next.
So then how bad is Virginia Tech?
Right. We're going to see, I think, this weekend when they play in Columbia.
And we're also going to see
when Virginia Tech plays ODU.
Yes.
That quarterback at ODU is legit, boys.
He's good.
I'm very spooked. Yeah, I get off of work at like 5:30-ish on Saturday. I'm going to go home and pray.
That's the game plan for the weekend?
Yeah, pray in between work and kickoff in Blacksburg. Just be like, don't embarrass me more than I've already been embarrassed.
Right.
Maybe the Hokies will win a 1-score game this weekend. They might.
They actually might.
That's one point we didn't bring up. He's 12-1 in 1-score games. Oh,
1-12.
Sorry, 1-12.
I knew what you meant. Yeah, it was not
very stark contrast. Dude, that'd be incredible when you look at his resume. Brent Pry, not that this matters. 16-23 overall, but he's 12-1 in one-score games.
Nobody gets blown out like the Hokies.
Nope.
Crazy. All right, boys. This was fun. Thank you, Carter.
Pleasure.
All right.
Hey, enjoy some Jaden Daniels tonight, Raza. Where's that game? Is that at Lambeau?
That's at Lambeau Field, so I'm very excited for it. But where can we find Carter Hill?
Oh, yeah. Where can we find Carter Hill, bro?
At CBHill_03 on Twitter /X/Instagram. It's been my username since like 7th grade. So
yeah,
I'm around doing some content.
I know it like the back of my hand. You know how many times I've typed that into Twitter to tag you in something?
Yeah. When you do 60-something minor league baseball games together, it gets muscle memory. Add Geo Heater.
My algorithm knows if I put at the first person before I even type a letter, the first one at the top is Carter.
Yeah, same for you too. Yeah, you're always at the top of the line.
And then I put that C and it's over. It's the only one on the list. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times. Miss
Pleasure,
you guys.
Pleasure.
All right.
We'll have
for
to
Raza,
back together soon.
For sure.
Easy.
For sure.
Easy. Stick around. We're going to do our week 3 picks coming up for both the NFL, college football. Plenty more got it covered around the corner. For Raza, I'm Carter. I'm Gio. See ya.